In the fabled land of Northern California, nestled in the Valley of Sacramento, two friends begin a journey to enlighten the world about their experience living life as a Xennial. But what is a Xennial, you may ask? If you wish to know, then follow them on their adventures.
Welcome to the Xennial Chronicles. This is James.
This is Mike.
And I had a couple of topics I wanted to talk about this week, but first, before we talk about anything else, I think we need to mention a current event thing going on right now, something that just happened. Well, it's been a few hours since it happened, since we're recording this.
Oh, yeah, it's fresh.
A couple of days. It'll be a couple of days once this comes out. But the explosion in Beirut, Lebanon, if any of you have seen by now you would have seen the video. By the time you're hearing this, you'd have seen the video. Hopefully they have information when this, at this point, what it really is, because today we're only hearing conflicted information. But I'm just saying that's I watched, as many Americans did for many years afterwards, tons of footage of like the towers, the Twin Towers in New York on 9/11. Because that was one of our first big things that had tons of camera footage. I mean, we had just gotten to the age of people starting to have cameras on their phones and the ability to record things easily. Things like the Oklahoma City bombing happened before anybody had real cameras anywhere, before there were cameras installed in places to watch major cities. So there's no footage that exists to show you the devastation of Oklahoma City. You just see the aftermath of the building, which was just, I don't know how much you remember that. I remember it specifically because I had a friend was visiting me at the time, was staying for the week of Easter, because it was during Easter. It was during Easter break, and that friend had family in Oklahoma City, and so when it came across the news that it happened, they were a little bit freaking out. They were not happy about the situation.
No way.
Nobody was.
But
they were worried about family and whatnot. And just all you saw from that afterwards was the massive devastation. And that was a guy that was a guy that just took some diesel fuel and some fertilizer, put it in the back of a van, and blew it up in front of this building. And really interesting. There's interesting stories behind Timothy McVeigh and why he did what he did, what his inspiration was. The video footage that came out later of where he was a couple of years beforehand and other things he was involved in. But anyway, there's no footage of that. Then that was a pretty massive explosion. So we had the footage of to be able to see of the Twin Towers and the utter devastation from that, and the footage that they have out at this point of this explosion in Beirut is similar in the sense that you get those views from people's balconies and outside of restaurants and people driving in their car, and they see the smoke in the car and they hear these little explosions, like, what the heck is going on? And then you see the gigantic explosion and you see the shock wave coming out and people dropping their phones, and it's crazy. I mean, at some point, hopefully, all the information will come out as to what everything is. But I would think we'd be amiss not to at least mention the fact that it's a terrible tragedy, regardless of what happened, and any loss of life in that. We're just two guys here in Northern California, but our hearts go out to any people that were hurt, injured, killed, families that lost loved ones in that. Nobody needs to be a part of those tragedies, and it's a terrible thing for sure. Any loved ones to be lost.
Definitely.
And I think anybody that's doing any kind of talking, especially any media people, any politicians, anybody that's somebody that's in the public eye, which we're really not, but we kind of try to be with this to some extent. When things like this happen, it is important to be able to express some sympathy and to empathize with the people as much as possible, and have people understand that it's human and it's appropriate to feel sorrow for other people's tragedies. It really is.
Absolutely.
Because you would hope if you're in that tragedy, people would be feeling some sympathy and some empathy for you to some extent.
Yeah, up to a point. I mean, it just comes down to, with me, I look at that experience from as far away as I am and consider myself to be extremely lucky that I am not in the middle of it. But at the same time, the best thing I could do is I don't say this with any, like, people of our generation have heard the term or have used the term thoughts and prayers with a bit of a snarky, snidish kind of idealism behind it. I get
what you're saying. Yeah.
In this instance, I legitimately would use the phrase thoughts and prayers with legitimately what it means. Like, my heart goes out to them. My heart goes out to Beirut. I can just hope for the swiftest recovery possible. Because this is a straight up accident.
You're not throwing out thoughts and prayers instead of, at this point when we're talking about this, because today is Tuesday. Everybody will be listening to this on Thursday.
Yeah.
But today's Tuesday when we're talking about this. It's not like you have the ability to donate money to any kind of relief fund for people that were injured or killed or for their families. There's nothing yet for that. So at this point, there's no way you could actually do something either financially or there's no way for you to get out to Lebanon to do something physically.
Right.
I don't mean, what are you going to do? Grab a shovel and start cleaning things up? There's only so much you can do at this point. So the idea of saying thoughts and prayers, the prayers thing's a whole different thing. But that your thoughts are with them, your heart's with them.
Yeah.
You feel the sorrow with them. That at least is showing some kind of sympathy and commiseration with the person.
Exactly.
It becomes an issue when there's something that you can physically do to make a difference with a group that is having an issue, be it by donation of money, be it by donation of your time, be it by changing laws or systems or other things that have caused this situation to happen.
Yeah.
And you don't do any of those things, even though you can do those things. They're available for you to do. You do none of those things, and your only response is thoughts and prayers.
Right.
Or I'll pray for you.
Yeah, that is, like I said, that can be used in a very snide format. But I think essentially what I'm saying in this case is that's not where we're going with this, man. That's not where anybody should be going with this.
And again, I think that what it comes down to is when you use those words to get yourself out of actually doing something,
right?
That's when those words become more of an insult than a balm.
Absolutely.
When you're using them because at the moment that's the only thing that you can do is give those words because there's nothing else that you can do. I mean, I can even take this from the standpoint of a week ago, my wife and I celebrated 19 years of marriage. And believe me, it's something I'm very excited and proud of.
Yeah, congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. But and hey, you were there. You were there that day.
Yes, I was.
Your wife was there that day.
Mm-hmm.
Your wife was standing a few feet away from my wife, and I believe you were in charge of the sign-in book on that day.
Yes, I was.
Which I still have, by the way. I still have
nice.
the sign-in book. And I have the little feathered pin that was used for it. The feathers are all gone off the pin, but I have the book and the pin still.
Cute.
But I've learned in my 19 years of marriage that sometimes there's some days that my wife is just frustrated by life, or frustrated by just things that are happening. Not by me. There are days she's frustrated by me, and I know how to deal with those days.
Yeah, definitely.
But there are some days that people in general are just frustrated with life. You wake up on the wrong side of the bed. You're just having bad feelings about something. Something's just gnawing at you, and sometimes people can help you with that. Sometimes, hopefully, your significant other can help you with that. Yeah. And sometimes your significant other can't do anything at all. Nobody can do anything. You just have to work through whatever it is that's weighing on you at that moment. And there's nothing that anybody at all can do. You just have to work your way through it. And I've learned over these 19 years to actually ask my wife that. If she's having one of those days, and either I see it or she tells me she's having one of those days, which we often do.
Yeah.
If we've identified we're having a bad day, we let the other one know so that the other one is understanding that if we're quick or we snap or we are a little bit more brusque than usual, it's not because we're mad at the other person. It's because we're having a day and we just don't have the same level of patience and kindness and whatever that we normally have. And, so we've learned to when we can identify we're having those days, we've learned to be able to tell the other so that the other person understands if I'm off today, it's not you, it's me. It really is. It's not the whole, it's not you, it's me, but it's really you. It literally is. It's not you, it's me. I'm having a day.
Right.
And the other thing, the thing I've learned is, like I said, sometimes she'll let me know she's having the day, and sometimes the first question I ask her is, this a problem I can help with, or is this a problem you just need to be able to work through on your own?
Right.
Can I actually do something, or do I need to step back and not do anything because there's nothing I can do? And it's hard for people, especially men. Men generally are taught to fix things, and especially in relationships. Oh, if the wife has a problem, you've got to figure out a way to fix it. Sometimes you cannot fix it. And in fact, sometimes the best thing to do is to let your significant other, and in this case, I'm only speaking from my experience of being a man married to a woman. Each relationship has its own dynamics. And and this doesn't necessarily apply to all. It just applies to at least what my experience has been with this. It can be one of the most empowering things that I can actually do for my wife, and especially living in a society where women are in so many ways belittled and have power taken away from them, and anytime they get any kind of personal power, they're derided for it, and again, have it removed as quickly as possible. This is an empowering thing for her, where I don't come in and I'm Mr. Fix-It and I'm her hero and I make everything better.
Right.
I step back and I say, you go through your process. I'm here for what you need. If you don't need me for the process, that's okay. You're strong enough to get through what you need to. Use me as the tool if you need to, but otherwise, I have faith in you to do what you need to do. That can be so empowering, and not just to her,
Absolutely.
Not just in the female sense. It can be empowering to me when she does the same thing for me and says, work through your problem. Let me know what I can do to help. That gives me control over my life and doesn't make me feel like my wife's trying to change me or make me into the better person.
Right.
All
Absolutely.
of these different things that happen.
Yeah.
And so there are some times in these situations where there is physically nothing we can do. And we need to understand that sometimes the best thing to do is just, hey, I'm thinking about you. I care. I sympathize with you. I'm here if you need me. Let me know what I can do. But until there's anything I can do, I'll just be here waiting and ready. And sometimes that's all we can do in many of those situations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Other times,
fully agree.
Other times, we actually, when we have the opportunity, we need to do something. But that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
Anyway, on to the real topic of the day. We're in the first week of August, and so first week of August means something different to me than it does to you. And I'm having you guess why. Why does it mean something different to me than to you?
I don't have a clue, man. I got nothing right now.
Because the first week of August has been, at least for the last 10 years or so, the last week of full summer.
Oh, yeah.
Because the second week of August is typically when, either second week, maybe sometimes third week, but typically second week of August is when the kids start going back to school.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Except this year,
yep,
that's not gonna happen the same way as always.
Nope.
So yeah, we just got our beginning of the year packets from the school with the same paperwork that you sign every damn year, the same set of it's fun because again you've not had to go through this yet,
no.
if ever. But this is the fun of it. You get this packet of paperwork at the beginning of the year, and one of the major things in the packet of paperwork, and I remember this actually from when I was a kid. You may remember it from when you were a kid. You probably got them first week of school or first day of school. You got these packets that you had to send home, or they sent home to your parents, and there was stuff they had to sign. There was the application for free lunches, whether you could get them or not. You still had to fill that out. You had to sign like a medical release form that had all your information and who the emergency contacts were and can they treat you for things and all that.
Yep.
And those are kind of the easy forms, although I think some of them are silly. Some people's information just never frickin' changes, so it's like, great, you just need me to do another one again because it's like there's one on file. There's like 5 of them on file from the last 5 years, and seriously, nothing has changed. All the phone numbers are the same. every year I tell you that there's only like one or two family members that are ever allowed to pick up my kid, even in a state of emergency, because I don't trust any of them to do anything more. And yes, I'm going on there and saying I don't trust y'all. Y'all know it. I'll say it.
That's fair.
I'm a control
freak. Entirely
fair. I'm a control freak, and I don't trust anybody. So that's, you know, if I trust you with my children, that means you're somebody special, because I am a hardcore control freak. But the fun one for me is always, and I chuckle every year when I have to look at it. They send a list of school rules home. Mm-hmm. You know, the rules for conduct and behavior.
Oh man.
The rules for dress code. Oh God, the dress code rules. So, you know, and at the last page of the rules, there's a sheet that the parents are supposed to sign saying that they've gone over the rules with the kids, they understand the rules, and they understand the penalties for the rules, mm-hmm. and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And all throughout high school, my mother never signed a single one of those. She refused and argued with the principal every year.
Really?
Yes, and her reasoning was, I'm not there to police my child while my child is at school, so I'm not going to sign anything putting me putting me responsible for him following rules when he is not in my care, when he is in your care.
That makes sense to me.
The principal was like, huh, but he's your kid. Yeah, but when he's here, I have no control over what he does. What can I do to him when he's at school? Yeah. There is nothing I can do to him. So I am not going to be responsible for the mistakes that he makes while he is here. She just couldn't understand it. I really didn't get not in much in the way of trouble. I mean, I caused a big stir senior year with an editorial I wrote as the editor of the school newspaper. That caused a big kerfuffle. I almost shut down the entire school newspaper.
What, really? Well, I'm gonna have to hear that story at some time.
Yeah, they were going to stop the school newspaper completely after I had written my editorial. It was a lot of fun. And it wasn't a major deal. It was such a minor deal, but it was one of those things that I had the temerity to question the authority of a teacher in my editorial, and a student council member saw it and didn't like it.
Oh wow!
And so it created a huge kerfuffle
how terrible
about me.
Is that?
Yeah, I questioned a teacher's authority, which is funny because I let the teacher do a rebuttal in the very next issue of the paper. Yeah. And they had to do a whole bunch of new rules in the next, for us to do the next edition of the paper. Actually, for the rest of that year, we had new rules and new procedures we had to do before we could do the student paper.
Wow.
But the advisor for the paper, who was another teacher, had approved my article, said it was fine. It was actually one of the better editorials they had, because it actually dealt with a real subject as opposed to just fluff that they've been doing for years. This was something that was really a student issue with a teacher. And the teacher, who, by the way, was my mentor and my favorite teacher.
Oh, wow.
He taught my English class. He taught my theater class. I mean, he was my favorite teacher. He just had instituted a new rule I disagreed with, and so I wrote an editorial about it. And he did a very good job when he did his rebuttal. He specifically quoted areas of my editorial where I had made English mistakes. And noted that I had made mistakes in them. And I applauded him afterwards. Said, "You hunted that out, didn't you?" He goes, "Oh yeah, I purposely found your mistakes. Thinking if I was going to write a good rebuttal, it was going to bring out, it was going to be a little bit of a thumb at you." I'm like, all right, I get it. I deserve that.
Well, so here's the thing about this, and this is the thing that you tend to find with a lot of people, because that is a form of, that essentially is a form of respect between the two of you. You having the ability to express your opinion. The fact that was so controversial is mind-boggling to me, especially when the teacher that you're talking about specifically respects you enough to be able to have a dialogue with you back and forth, and not only that, poke a little bit of fun at the entire situation overall. I thought that was great. Well, just the idea of it.
The teacher isn't the one who had the issue. It was the principal of the school and the student council, because they were worried that other people might see this article and see that it was the students' not respecting the authority of the teachers.
Which is just dare a teenager say anything that challenges authority?
Well, the funny thing about it is this teacher in specific this is the teacher that for our senior English class, he gave us a list of books that we could choose to read from, and we chose what books we wanted to read, including, at the time, Catcher in the Rye, which had just been banned for high school reading. We chose to read it specifically because it was banned. And then we were all angry because it was stupid. It wasn't really that good of a book, and the reason that it was banned was idiotic.
Why was it banned?
Completely idiotic. There's a couple of foul words in the book. The kid in the book, Holden Caulfield. This is the funny part. He says a couple of foul words. They don't worry about the fact that a teacher is trying to sleep with students in the book. That's not the reason it got banned. It got banned because he's at his sister's school, her elementary school, and he sees some kid is, I think, carved fuck or shit into the wall of the school.
Oh no!
And he's pissed off because he's a teenager, and it's a kind of a novel about him losing his innocence and having to face the adult world and how awful and terrible it is, and all the illusions he had of authority figures being trustworthy and the world going to be something that he could easily go into or just have been thrown asunder. And he sees these words, and it pisses him off that his sister, who's just a little kid in elementary school, could possibly see these words and have her innocence shattered at such a young age because of how much it hurts him that his innocence is now shattered. He wants to protect her innocence as long as possible because he is reeling from the loss of his. It's a beautiful, touching message that is appropriate to have those words, but nope, bad words, ban the book.
Are you serious? Wow, that was the reason.
Serious.
This is like the same. This is like a year and a half. This is a year and a half or so, probably. What you're talking? Is this senior year?
Yeah, this would be I believe it was banned in 97.
It was banned in 97.
I graduated in 98.
Okay, come on, man. Like, dude, 96. I was a freshman. And I believe I know why the Cage Bird Sings was reading material in 96, my freshman year. And if I remember correctly, yeah, there's some, don't get me wrong, like, there's obviously...
Rape!
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was getting at. I was like, there's a rape scene in that book, and you're reading this book to 15-year-olds. Like, you also had like, we actually started really learning about what was actually happening during the Holocaust and stuff. I'm pretty sure that we can handle the word shit carved on a wall. Like,
I actually think it was the fuck word, but still
the fuck word. I like that.
But still, good. I mean, it's still. I mean, the controversy surrounding that specific book was for the entirely wrong reasons.
Yeah,
and for a level of stupidity. It's like Huck Finn being banned because of its references to slaves and the N word and all that. Admittedly, I don't want to have to say the N word, but
right, yeah.
At the same time, that being the reasons for it, for the time that it was written and for the understanding of it, it's a teaching moment where you can explain how the world once was and how we have become better. Yes. And when kids are uncomfortable saying those words, you can explain how that does show that we have advances as a society, because we understand that a word that meant one thing took on a different meaning because of the way that society used that word.
Exactly.
And we have to understand that regardless of the original definition, regardless of the original purpose, this word now has this meaning and connotation, and we need to understand how it makes people feel. Yes, you can still say the word because freedom of speech allows you to say it, but you have to deal with the repercussions of what it makes other people feel like when you say these.
Exactly.
And this is moments we can actually properly teach the shifts in society, but they don't. But anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah,
we definitely need to fix the hell out of that. That's got to be something that's handled. Like I am having a major problem with a lot of things that have come to light in recent conversation, especially learning things that I should have learned. that I should have known.
Okay. Well, and see, that's part of the thing is I think we're getting ahead of where I was heading with this.
Okay, so I do apologize for a bit of much of a change of the subject if that's what happened.
Let me backtrack a little because I think I'm going to go in a direction later. In our second half, I think I'm going to go in a direction where it's kind of where your mindset is.
Okay.
But anyway, like I was saying, we got the paperwork, our first sets of paperwork, all the forms we have to fill out.
Mm-hmm.
And we got a letter with the form saying that yes, because our area of California, our county is on the watch list, we are starting schools on online education. Right. Which is fine. We did online education for all of spring, for summer. So yeah, I mean, we were expecting this to happen. We've made specific provisions in our house to set that up. As you know, personally, I set up a home office for when I am working, but it's going to function now to be another space where my 3 different children, yes, I have 3 of them for people who don't know. I know I created that many partial clones of myself. What was I thinking?
Partial clones.
I can tell you what I was thinking. I was thinking I was going to at some point have them help me take over the world. Not going to work out the way that I expected it to. I have one.
It turns out they all have minds of their own and things they want to do.
Well, I have one that I think is a little too sadistic to give that much power to. I have one. I literally have a superhero, and I'm talking like the Labrador Retriever kind of silly, goofy, but not necessarily super genius level superhero.
Right.
So like, you know, the one that just will save everybody because that's the right thing to do, and you know, super lovable and nice and cares about everybody, but necessarily isn't going to figure out the villain's you know, master plan until it like smacks them in the face. So I have that kid. And then I have the super villain who looks sweet and adorable, and everybody compliments, you know, that portion of things. And then on the underside is literally analyzing everything that everybody around them does, and it probably knows how to physically and mentally destroy every person that they ever encounter. That's admittedly the child that is actually the most like me of my children. And then I have the other child, the third one, who is best way I can put it in Dungeons and Dragons terms.
Okay.
This child would be like a chaotic neutral.
I was going to say chaotic neutral.
In the sense that you never know what this child is going to do. I've spent more time around this child than any other living person, and I can tell you I barely know what this child is going to do. I have to watch for micro expressions to see what's going to happen. Sometimes he's on, and literally, when the 3 kids are doing things together, sometimes he's on the side of the superhero kid and playing and having fun and laughing, and sometimes he's on the side of the supervillain kid, and they're either trying to kill each other or maybe trying to kill the superhero kid. And literally, this is how it works. He just bounces between whichever one he feels best with. And so it's a very. I was hoping for 3 acolytes that I could raise up and teach all of the wonderful things that I knew. And no, if I tried to control them in that way, it would be a complete rebellion against me, and I would probably die. But anyway, having the 3 kids, I wanted to make sure I have enough areas of the household to try to set them up in their own areas to work, because they don't work well in the same areas together. Distractions, you know, whatnot. Yeah. Never works out good. And so we finally got the information today that, you know, or yesterday actually when we first got it, and I called the various instructors and people I needed to find out what the situation was. Some already had some information as to how they were going to roll things out. Others are still waiting to get all the information together and will call me and pitch me their whole ideas of when we're going to have classes, how we're going to have classes, what it's going to look like, how much time I'm going to have to strap the kids down in front of computers for the day. But it's been funny because the schools have had now since the spring, when everything went on the initial lockdown, to start planning for their rollout of distance education, because they had to figure it out on the fly back in the spring. And any parent that's listening to this can tell you how weird it was. Regardless of what level of education your kids are in, what type of education your kids are in, unless they were doing online instruction before all of this, it was a weird rollout, because you got different things happening and then changing up, because the schools didn't know what to do, because the schools are too locked into the traditional modes of education.
Right.
And what they've had to do is they've had to alter their plans for the way traditional education works. And I can tell you right now, at least with one of my kids' schools, because my kids go to different schools. One goes to one school, the other two go to another school.
Right.
With the one that goes to the one school, I can tell you right now that even with all the time just to research how to do this, all the ways to figure out how to do this and make this work, if every other school that is doing this distance education is doing a similar program to what my oldest school is doing, they're failing at what could be the greatest opportunity they have ever been given to revamp the way education works, to bring education into the modern era. They are failing at it. And I'm going to explain why I believe that.
Okay.
Right now, it's a good time. We're going to take a break.
Okay.
And when we come back, I'm going to talk about what this school is trying to do and how I think they're failing at this idea of changing education and making education more beneficial, which I think is where you may have been going with your thoughts.
Okay.
More beneficial, more informative.
Yes.
So we'll be back in just a minute, all right?
All right. Hey friends, this is Mike from the Xennial Chronicles reminding you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Xencron, spelled Xenchron, to keep up to date on all things TXC. And please check out our official website, theXennialChronicles.com, or if that's too much to type, Zencron.com. Thanks again for listening, and now, back to the show.
And we are back.
All right.
So, like I was saying before, I spoke with one of the instructors there at my oldest school, and she was kind of telling me a little bit about what they're working on for their program, and they're reducing the time that school time happens, because normally it happens from like 8:30 to like 2:30 or whatever, standard school times.
Yeah,
they're reducing it from 9:15 to 2 o'clock, and then they're throwing in an hour-long lunch, which normally lunch at school is like half an hour.
Yeah.
So this is part of their program for the at-home instruction, because the kids may have to be making their own food, and this is a high school environment, so kids can be making their own food, that kind of stuff. Here's a twist, though. They're making everything 30-minute class periods, where the kids will be on 30-minute Zoom meetings for their 30-minute class periods.
Okay. Wait a minute.
So. Okay, what? Go ahead.
No, I sorry, the wheels are turning. Please continue. So, is that
this is what the basic high school class is doing. This is what the basic high school class is doing.
Oh, okay.
Well, each 30 minutes is a separate subject. You have 30 minutes of your math, 30 minutes of your English, 30 minutes of your. I mean, I don't know how they're going to do something like wood shop, but if they even have wood shop anymore in schools.
I'm pretty sure, as far as crafts and stuff, I highly doubt they're going to be able to do anything like that. They might even work art into like a digital medium, which I did digital
hey, that's
art.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
But they're breaking it up into these 30-minute sessions, where the kids will focus have the lectures focus on the classwork.
Yeah.
And for that part, that's pretty decent, except here's the thing about it. Even structuring it to where you have to be, and I get the idea, you put it in these sessions because then kids have the chance to respond, be a part of the class, whatever. You put it during the normal school day so that they have that opportunity.
Right.
But it's still following the same restrictive time parameters that traditional education already follows, that I think is part of the hampering that traditional education brings upon us. And let me kind of me kind of reference other countries, explain what I'm talking about here.
Yeah.
There are other countries, especially Northern European countries, that have realized that the standard structure of school, the 8:30 to 2:30, end of August all the way till the beginning of June, and the whole summer break off, is actually not conducive to proper learning and proper retention of the information. Specifically, trying to ask kids as young as 5 years old to do even 4 hours of education in kindergarten at one block is just too much. And then a year later, ask them to do that 8:30 to 2:30. That's too much for these kids to be able to go to school, do the school stuff, and retain the information properly. And then you give them 2 months off over the summer.
Right.
And expect them, again, to retain all of that information during a 2-month period where they're having to deal with a whole different setup.
Right.
You see, this is one of the problems with this traditional education cycle, having this summer vacation, the summer break, is that it's a throwback to a time before we had air conditioning, when when people were needed to not be at school for other purposes. This is an archaic system where having this big break from school, you think about this, sir. Think about this. What other job other than the job of teacher? What other job has a 2-month-long break in the year? Now you have some seasonal work, like Christmas workers, but they work that specific season. You have summer workers specifically because we have this glorified summertime where everybody goes and does things.
Right, and you have that, but during that break, you have people that are actually starting another job, and it's probably essentially that job is made to accommodate the break that was put before it.
There is some of that.
Like there's there's like summer concerts, and you have people running water parks and theme parks. Most of these jobs get the brunt of their work during the summer, but that's because of the summer break.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a cyclic system that right now, with everything that's going on, we actually have the ability to break out of this cycle of tradition that actually serves no purpose any longer. And in fact, it has a negative impact on what our social society has become. Because you have to think about the fact that when American education first started and really started taking its ramp up, which most programs like the education system really got ramped up after World War II.
Okay. Right.
The pre-World War II education systems were fairly spotty, and only in major cities did you find really robust education for children.
Are you talking like after the Second World War is when we started really trying to refine the Department of Education and like all this kind of stuff? After the Second World War, specifically after the Great Depression and then after the Second World War, with many of the programs that FDR put in place and later that were put in place by Truman and Eisenhower, there was tons of money funneled into tons and tons of taxpayer money funneled into public works programs. Okay.
Stuff as small as city government, city water, streets, the highway system. The highway system didn't exist pre-World War II.
Whoa.
It was only after World War II, Dwight Eisenhower was actually responsible for the highway system even happening. So you're talking all of this taxpayer money was funded into all of these different public programs to make it so that we had an interconnected America. We had school districts. We had, water companies, city, just all the different things that happen, city works places where they have, city cleaning, city planning, all of those things all came about after World War II, and the tax money being funneled into building all of these public programs.
Right.
And schools were part of the public programs that didn't really have the investment money, the government investment money before that. There were taxes that were enacted during World War II and taxes that were kept after World War II that helped the expansion and growth of the United States during that time period. I know we've discussed on here before that there was also a big economic growth during that time period because of all the major countries that were involved in World War II. The United States was the only one that did not suffer any major damage to their actual country.
Right. Because we were so far essentially removed from the location of the war.
Yeah, the only part of our country that got damaged was Pearl Harbor. The rest of our country was basically left alone from the war because it didn't happen on our soil.
Right, exactly.
So this gave us a manufacturing capability that other countries were, Russia was rebuilding. China was rebuilding because they were invaded by Japan. Japan was rebuilding. Germany was rebuilding. England was rebuilding. All these countries, and, half of Europe rebuilding from all of the damage and devastation. France. All these countries all over the world that have production now were either rebuilding or were finally coming into the modern age. I mean, you have most of Southeast Asia wasn't even in the modern age at that point. So all these countries had to build up. The United States had this ability to have this big economic boom. We also had a 70% tax rate on the top 1% of people during that time period. And I don't know, you know how tax rates work, right? Yes, no?
As far when you're talking about, that's actually
like
kind
the
of a
tiers
broad
for tax rates.
I know that they exist. I am not intricately. I don't have.
Give you an
knowledge.
example. I'm gonna make up a few of the numbers here because I don't know exactly where the breaks are.
Okay.
Just off the top of my head.
Right.
But I'll give you an example here. Let's say that they say that the you make over $1 million, right?
Right.
Say a year. If you make over $1 million, you're going to get taxed at the 70% rate. Okay.
Okay.
What that means is, if you make $999,999, you don't make that million mark, right? Yep. That money below the million mark is going to be taxed at all the other rates below that.
Yes.
Which I think the highest rate at that point is like 24 or 28, something like that.
Yeah.
Anything you make over the $1 million, and just that portion over.
Yeah.
Let's say you make $2 million for the year.
Okay.
Right? You make
yes.
$2 million.
Yes, I am familiar with the way that this works. Yes.
Okay. So if you make the $2 million, only the $1 million that's above the first million gets taxed at 70%. The first million gets taxed at the normal rate.
Exactly.
This is the tax rate that was in place during the late 40s and the 50s. Okay.
Right, and they've since been chopped up and fucked with and removed, and
that was removed during the early 1980s as part of the trickle down economics theory.
Reaganomics, right?
If they cut the tax rate for the top 1% down to almost nothing, the money would eventually trickle down to the lower class of the population.
Right, exactly. They would have the money to then pay to that. That was the idea.
Yes, that was the idea, but it is what it is. Anyway, so during that time period, all of these things we started getting some major investment. You started seeing the investment in all of these public programs because of these tax dollars. Now, public schools, for the most part, are funded through property taxes nowadays. But even then, the startup of the schools was started from the public works programs from the federal government, and then went into property taxes paying for the schools, which, by the way, is why we have the interesting disparity in education that we do have. If school funding is based on property taxes, then it goes to follow that neighborhoods that are that the homes are expensive will have higher property taxes, which means more money funneled into the schools, which means they can pay their teachers better, they can get supplies better, they can keep their buildings updated. If you have poor neighborhoods, the property values are low, therefore the taxes are low, therefore there's not enough money to fund the schools properly. They have to pay less for their teachers, they can't afford the books or the upkeep on the property as well. This is part of the reason why we see some of the education disparity in in different neighborhoods. And then you throw in something like redlining into that
right.
causes a whole different thing. By the way, if anybody listening who doesn't know what redlining is, go ahead and look that one up. Maybe another day we'll have a discussion about redlining and how awful that is, and how many problems that we are currently dealing with today that redlining has created, and still creates to this very day. Interesting. It's interesting to note. That's one of those fun things to point out. The different things that redlining was actually involved in, but again, a discussion for another day.
Yeah.
But so when we think about the tradition of schools, the Monday through Friday, again, end of August, beginning of September, all the way to the beginning of June.
Yeah.
These are traditions that really have not been as solid for as long as people think they have been. People think, oh, it's been that way for, years and years and hundreds of years. No, it's not. It's only been that way for the majority of Americans for 70, 80 years.
I was going to say, we're talking like industrial workforce, 9 to 5, regular time jobs.
Well, I mean, keep in mind, 100 years ago, kids would still be working in factories.
Oh, yes. No, absolutely. After the child labor laws were put in, you're looking at, there were more adults that were working, and you had the same idea with your, I would say, a nuclear family concept. The nuclear family concept was also another thing that was very much a post-World War II thing. Yeah.
And part of that idea of the nuclear family concept, interestingly enough, it was one of those things that was an ad campaign, like lobster, like bacon, like so many other things that were trying to get people to view the world in a certain way.
Yeah.
The nuclear family campaign was actually to try to acclimate women who had gone into the workforce back into home life when the men came back from the war. The women had been given, I mentioned this earlier, didn't I? The women had been given a little bit of empowerment.
Yep.
And that empowerment got stripped back away from them.
Yep.
And they were sent back to be at home under the thumb of their husband.
Yep.
And that was where the nuclear family came in. And actually this leads into the next point, where when all these schools are finally becoming this truly available thing to Americans all over the country, when the money's finally really being invested into these schools and making it a true public school thing. And again, I'm not saying public schooling didn't exist before this, but this is where it became accessible to everybody. This is when it became something that you didn't have to live near one of the big cities to get it. You got it. It was there. School was put everywhere.
Yeah.
And compulsory all the way to 12th grade instead of, okay, you're done with 6th grade. We can't afford to send you to school anymore. This is when it becomes a regular thing.
Huh.
At that time, again, we're having this huge economic prosperity. We're having this boom. Everybody's making money. In fact, the cheapest, most unskilled laborers are able to make money, enough money to be able to have one parent working and one parent able to stay home.
And own a house.
If they did work, they could work a part-time job. The wife could maybe work a part-time job to make a little bit of extra money.
Yeah.
For the most part, a man could work a basic job and be able to pay for his family to live somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing flashy or fancy, but they lived in a house. Again, oftentimes were able to buy one.
Yeah.
On a basic salary. This lasted into the 1970s, in fact, this kind of economic boom. I can say that my father in the 1970s, he didn't have very good credit, so he needed to get a co-signer from his first father-in-law, but he was able to start purchasing a home and be purchasing a home in the 1970s.
Yeah.
And would you like to know what my dad did for a job?
Shoot,
as he was purchasing a home.
Go for it. What was he doing?
He was a grocery clerk at Lucky's. Lucky's
wow.
grocery store. He was a grocery clerk and had the ability with his paycheck to be able to pay on a mortgage on a house. Now, admittedly, he may have also gotten a little bit of money from his father-in-law to help with the down payment. I don't know what all the details were. but I know that his father-in-law did help him to start getting get the loan and get set up for the house. But my father was able to make his mortgage payments on a house on the and take care of his family financially. And at the same time, he had a hobby. He owned a race car. It was only, local dirt track racing stuff, but he owned a race car and had enough money to be able to put money into the race car to keep the race car running.
Wow.
So he had enough money for a hobby and to buy a house on the salary of a grocery clerk. Now, I don't know if his first wife got a job after his first two kids were born, my two older brothers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if if she got a job or not. I don't know the history there. But I mean, he was making enough money to be able to do that. When she did divorce and leave him, he was still living in the house, paying the payments on the house.
Wow.
And so it was a time where you could have just a simple job. And I mean, for the most part, that's a fairly simple job, and be able to buy a house, be able to have one parent working and the other parent stay at home. And the only time the other parent had to work is if you wanted to make more money. You didn't have to survive. You could have only one parent working and survive.
Yeah.
And you could have the mother that stayed home, and you could have the kids go to school and then be home all summer long because that was affordable to do.
Yeah.
You had the ability to do it.
Man.
Here's the thing, and this is how it touches our generation.
Mm-hmm.
Our generation was probably the last generation where some of us were lucky enough to have one parent be able to actually be at home while we were going to school. Now, I'm not saying it did happen for everybody. In fact, for the majority of us, we were also the first generation that the majority of us did not have that. The vast majority of us didn't have it.
The way that I was, the household that I had when I was a kid, that I was part of when I was a kid, was kind of back and forth between that. It depended on a couple of factors. One of them I would assume would be like, extra kids. That was a thing. But there was one period of time where my stepdad always worked, had a job in construction for 25 years. I remember he would do the 9-to-5 thing, work in construction every weekday. Right? That was his Monday to Friday gig, right? That was what he did. And then my mom would I remember now. They made enough to be able to afford to pay rent and eventually ended up making enough money to get a loan on a house. But in between that time, when I was going to school, my mom would be at home for the most part until she decided to just go get a part-time job. And if I remember correctly, she got a part-time job because she was bored originally. Yeah. She went and worked at a jewelry store. I was living in Rancho Cordova, and she went and worked at a jewelry store out in Carmichael. And it was just because she was like, I want to go do something during the day, couple of hours, come back home. And
it was while the kids were at school, right?
Yeah, while the kids were at school, I would come back home, and eventually what would happen was she'd work a couple of hours in the middle of the day, and then I would come back home and she would be there. And then eventually what would happen was she would work a little bit longer hours out there and I would come home by myself and be there until she showed back up at home. She would get home before Dad. Dad would get home at about, 5, 6 o'clock, and then dinner and, the next day all over again. Right. But it was just,
actually, this is the perfect example of the generation that is now lost.
Well, what's so funny?
We're the last generation to be able to have that kind of progression, because what that progression was is as you got older and you were able to be left alone a little bit more.
Yeah.
Your mom was able to take on a little bit more hours,
right?
And they were able to do the thing. They were able to do the thing that is being demanded of our generation and of the generations younger than us, the millennials right now.
Right.
Well, just pick yourself up by your bootstraps and take care of it. You can do this because we were able to do it like this. As the kid gets a little bit older, you take on the more responsibilities, and then you can save up enough money to be able to buy that house instead of rent that house. And you can do it. You can become a homeowner too. Except the problem is our generation has not been given the time to have one parent stay at home. We were the last generation as kids
Right.
to see one parent be able to stay at home, to afford one parent being able to stay at home on just a normal person's salary. And this is the thing to be clear, the normal person's salary, not somebody that's got a really good job or a higher paying job or a job that required an education, but on a normal person's salary. We could not have. We saw some of our friends still had the one parent staying home. Some of them, the second they started going to school, that one parent had to get the job to be able to start saving, to be able to make up enough money. Now you have you have a couple who will get married. Both of them have a job. They're both being able to barely pay the rent with the jobs that they have.
Yes.
They get pregnant and have a kid, and as soon as the maternity leave is over, which, by the way, in the United States is an abysmal maternity leave, wouldn't it be nice if a mother got 12 months of maternity leave when she had a kid at 2/3 of her pay? Of her job pay, and on top of it, if the father got 6 months of maternity leave that they didn't have to take within the first 6 months of the child being born, but they had to take it within the first 2 years of the child being born, so they could alternate it. So technically, they could have a year and a half of the first year of the first 2 years of the child's life with at least one parent at home, bonding with the child, teaching the child, getting the child through the first year and a half. No, here in America, you get 6 weeks, and then the woman has to go back to work, and the man gets nothing.
Yeah,
has to go back to work because it's not important for men to bond with their kids. That's what women do. Sorry, a little bit of condemnation on the way that America handles these things. It makes me angry because I have been one of the parents that had the luxury of being able to be home with my kids and spend an inordinate amount of time with my kids. I've been the main at-home parent and caregiver for my kids for 10 years now.
Yeah.
And it's been an amazing and beautiful thing to have been able to do. Parents get sometimes accused of talking about their kids too much because that's all that they have in their life. Well, I actually purposely made my kids my life, and I could say I really do feel rewarded for it. I feel amazing. I feel like I've gotten to understand the world in such a better way, and the love that I have for them, the love they have for me is astonishing. Admittedly, they still prefer my wife over me, their mom.
Right.
But I can't argue with them very much because I prefer her over me too. So I just look at it as my kids have good taste. They know who the really awesome one is. Even though I'm the one that did everything, they still know who the awesome one is because I think she's the awesome one. So I can't argue. I can't be mad at them for liking her more. I like her more. So but anyway, the point being.
Well, I have if I may interject, before you continue, there's something that I came to a realization to while I was talking about it. What eventually ended up happening in the latter half of my high school years is that my mom, for the most part, stayed home, and then she ended up getting a job at the post office. And at one point, for the two of them to be able to afford I believe the house payment and a couple of other things that we're trying to take care of, because they're taking care of 3 kids at this point, and those kids start getting older, and
then they eat. Oh, and then they eat.
Right? Okay, so get this. So they're trying to take care of 3 growing kids. One's in middle school, one's in elementary school, one's in high school. Okay, we're born about 4 or 5 years apart.
That's their mistake right there.
Yeah, they're born about. We were born about 4 or 5 years apart from each other. Right. So
you never space them out. Get them all done at once.
So here's the catch on this. What ends up happening is they end up having to split work, and both of them end up having to go to work at one point. I think this happened shortly after I graduate high school and I move out. I moved out at 18, 19 years old. And then the economy crashed.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because the economy crashed, the housing market crashed. And guess what happened to my dad's job?
Gone.
Boom. 25 years. And he was let go. Right? So what ends up happening is they're not only going for this, there's not just this situation where the two of them start having to work in order to keep up on the house payment for the one house they own,
Yeah.
Then one of them loses his job. And then now they're dependent on the job at the post office. And the job at the post office isn't enough to pay for a house. Like, they're barely scraping by, and they, quote unquote, I would say, got lucky because one of the kids is out of the house. They're not paying for that kid anymore. Right?
Well, no.
So now they've only got 2 kids. And they're still struggling hardcore, and they started struggling hardcore for like a decade.
Yeah. No, that's the thing is they and many in our parents' generation had this happen, and they don't realize that how much it affected them. It did even more of an effect on their children and eventually their children's children. Yeah. Is that it throughout the 80s and the 90s, the shift started happening where you couldn't live on just one person's income anymore. Right. You couldn't have just, again, a normal person's salary. And as it got closer and closer to our time to being adults, we come out into the adult world and it all just basically falls apart because of the way that system ends up being built. And so when our generation starts having kids, we don't have the capability of having somebody, at least the majority of us don't have the capability of having somebody be able to be at home while their kids are young, and then especially when their kids are in school, they have to immediately start working because both incomes are necessary to be able to sustain a family. Yes. Having the school in its traditional way and its traditional model that it's in, what do those families do from June till the second or third week of August? What do? Because now they suddenly have 2 people that need to have jobs and kids that don't have a built-in babysitter from 8:30 to 2:30. Yep. So how are the and sometimes even later with after-school programs and daycare setups? How are families supposed to be able to deal with this traditional school model? And then throw in the idea that when these kids get older with this traditional school model and the summertime model, I mean, how big of a shock was it to you to find out that you'd never get summer vacation really again once you graduated high school and had to go get a job? Wait, we work during the summer? Wait, we work all year round? We don't get 2 months off of work? Yep. What the hell is that about? This is a system that's designed that does not fit with the way that our world is set up.
Exactly. It doesn't prepare children properly for going into a year-round workforce.
It's not even about the children. It's about the families in general. It is not conducive to the way that families need to work. Right. Moreover, the fact that they have the capability to have these lectures that are happening and will be happening on a daily basis, they can have these able to be online. People can log in while the lecture is happening, or they should be able to, if this was done right, instead of having everybody half hour here, half hour here, half hour here, half hour here, instead of having this setup where the kids have to be nailed to it for that moment, from that 9:15 to 2 o'clock moment, Monday through Friday, what if they had the capability of doing it on, say, I don't know, a weekly basis where there's 7 or 5 lectures for each class in the week, and you have your time to do the 5 lectures for each class by the end of the week. Say it starts on Monday, you have the time to do it, and you have to get the work submitted by the next Monday morning, right?
So you're talking, have the lecture pre-set up, and then you go through the lecture at a time of your choosing?
Actually, here would be the thing to do. Set the times up for these lectures to happen. Have the teachers teach the lectures at the times, but don't demand that the kids be there at the time of the lecture. Have the teachers do it so the teachers are sitting there and rooted and doing their job. So, throughout the day, they're giving multiple lectures for the multiple classes. Because if you got an English teacher, he's not just teaching one English class. He's teaching multiple English classes. Right. You got a math teacher. She's not just teaching geometry one time a day. She's teaching multiple math classes throughout the entire day. Period 1 is this class. Period 2 is that class. Right. Maybe it is just geometry, but it's like 5 classes of geometry a day. Right? Right. Maybe the teacher doesn't just teach geometry. Maybe they do algebra and geometry, algebra 2, trigonometry, calculus, whatever they teach, pre-algebra, whichever ones they teach. Do the lesson at the time that it's set up, but don't require the kids to have to log in at that exact time. Make it available for them to log in at that time, but make it so that they have to at least log in and watch at some point. We have systems that can track people logging in to watch. Okay?
Okay.
They have to log in to watch.
Okay.
They have to do assignments. Maybe they have to submit questions or answers on each thing. And
I was going to say,
them,
that's the first. I understand where you're coming from, but the first question that I have about that is, if they have questions, what happens?
The way you set it up is either A, you let you have the people that actually log on for the class.
Uh-huh.
So let's say it's a math class, right? Say it's a math class and it's at 10 o'clock in the morning every day.
Yeah.
Okay. 10 in the morning every day is your scheduled math class.
Right.
So let's say you can't make the 10 o'clock in the morning on a regular basis, right? And every day it happens, but you know that they're all going to be out there to access whenever you need to access them.
Right.
You're not required to be there at 10 o'clock. You are required to have watched all 5 lessons by the end of the week.
Right.
Done whatever assignments need to be done, whatever needs to be done for that time at the end of every week. Every Monday morning you have to submit it before, or maybe it's Sunday night you have to submit it, and it has to be registered in their servers that it's come in, right?
Right.
That you've submitted your work, right?
Right.
Okay. So let's say it's Monday, right? And you don't watch the class till like 7 o'clock. Okay. Even let's say it's Wednesday. Let's say it's Wednesday. You haven't had your schedule because of what's going on with your parents, or what's going on with you as the teenager, whatever's going on with your family. Let's say other things have taken precedence that you haven't been able to watch your math class yet. You've watched other classes. You've done other things. Say you've been concentrating on other subjects.
Right.
Wednesday Wednesday night you watch your 3 Wednesday math class, or your 3 math classes. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Right.
Right.
And let's say you're confused. You don't know what's going on. What do? Thursday morning, you arrive at the class. Say, hey, I have some questions during the class period, or you have the ability to email the teacher and say, hey, can we set up a meeting time on Thursday to talk about the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday classes?
This sounds actually very similar to I did take a few online courses in college. That sounds like the online college course.
Exactly.
This is how
online college courses work.
Yeah.
This is exactly
100%.
how online college courses work.
Yep.
And we could start with all of this to make this more malleable system where you don't have to follow the traditional Monday through Friday. What if it works better for the kids to work on the weekends? What if they're the type of kids that, like me, for instance, I would have loved a system like that where I could have done all 5 math classes, all my math in one day. Mm-hmm. Just in one stretch.
Slam it out, and then you got the whole week.
Do all the math.
Yeah.
Do all the English in one stretch instead of one each day. Just do it all at once, because that's how my brain works. Once I concentrate on the one thing, boom, I can get it out. We have the capability, but still have the availability for the kids that do need to sit every day and watch the stuff every day.
Right.
And that gives the teachers the necessity to be there every day doing it, and set aside specific office hours where people can chat with the teachers and ask questions, find out information. Log on to just an open chat with the teachers at some point during the day. Set aside this much time of the day that they can log on to an open chat and ask any questions that were not taken care of in any of the lectures, or any things that they didn't understand about any of it.
Right.
Have open forums where the kids can talk back and forth to themselves. I hate the idea that the whole concept of the way that we do test taking. Why can't tests be a collaborative effort where you find the answer? I remember my mother telling me that the true mark of somebody that has a skilled mind is not that they know all the answers. It's that they know where to find all the answers. Because you don't need to know all the answers. You just need to know where you can find the answers. Because that's going to get you somewhere in this world. Know how to find them. Know where to look for them. Know who to ask to find the information. That is so much more of a skill than having a bunch of random facts in your head. The random facts are useless. Unless, of course, people decide to call you for the random facts. I can't tell you how many times people call me to find out trivia facts about Star Wars. Hey, did this and this and this happen in this movie or in the Star Wars movies? Well, technically, yes, but I'm just saying this. We have the opportunity to, especially with our high school students, but even with our elementary students, to take advantage of this technology. Understand, we don't live in, especially now, we don't live in the world that we used to, but we haven't lived in that world for about 15, 20 years now. We live in a world where the technology gives us the ability to do things in a completely different way, to open things up to other people's strengths and educate people in a way that is that is so much more productive for their learning, and we're still stuck in. And here's the reason why, by the way. The reason why that they want the kids to log on to these lectures for 30 minutes at a time every single day, it all has to do with money. Because the way that we fund schools, other than like I said, the property taxes, the way that those schools get their funding every day, every month, every year, is by having the attendance of the kids in the seats. Because here's the thing, if the kid is not there, the school does not receive the money for the kid.
Right. I do know that. That's actually funny enough. That's how college courses are done as well.
Well, the
only difference is the fact that I believe the teacher is paid by whether or not you've signed up for the college course. Like if you signed up for it, right? So you commit yourself to the class, the teacher gets paid whether or not you show up.
Well, here's the thing.
I'm rusty on that, though. I might be incorrect.
Well, I don't know about college, but I know how it goes with the public education system.
Right. The public education system requires the kid to be there. That's why there's all, that's why some kids' parents get called if the kid's tardy or truant.
No, they get more than called, sir. I'll get into that in a second. They're required to be there for a certain amount of time of the day. Then they can be sent home if they're sick. They can be sent home after a certain amount of time a day,
right?
Because then the school's allowed to take credit for them. The problem is what this does is this takes something that is, it basically takes being sick and turns it into a crime, and it punishes the parents. The parents are the ones that end up punished for it.
Wow.
I personally know somebody who had to go to a SARB hearing. Which is the hearings that they send you to when your kids miss too many days or ditch too many classes.
Really?
And the entire purpose of the SARB hearing was basically to threaten to arrest the parents for the kid missing classes. And then the truant officer for the school intimidated the parent enough that the parent ended up just literally placing a hand on the truant officer's chest to ask the truant officer to back away from them so they weren't in their personal space. And because it was actually an actual courthouse, federal property.
That's assault.
Yes, it is assault of a police officer, and the person was arrested for assault of a police officer.
Yep.
Assault of a police officer for just touching a guy on the chest.
Yep.
To try to scare the parents to make sure that the kids go to school.
Yep.
Yeah. That's the way that these things work. That's the way they operate. The money is being held on to by attendance. When we do that, we don't incentivize teaching. We incentivize attendance.
Right.
All that we care about is the butt is in the seat. We don't care if the kid actually learns anything. We don't care if it's a productive situation. They just care about we need the kid to be here.
Yep.
Nothing else matters. As long as we have this type of idea about education, we are not going to be able to educate people properly. We're not going to be able to teach them the things that we want to. And actually, you know what? The real topic I think you wanted to get into, we're going to have to touch on another time, which is what you're taught in school versus what the real truth is.
Yeah,
and why you're taught that. Part of that has to do with where they make textbooks, but the other part of it is the fact that I hear a lot recently about how it seems that there's a movement right now to quoting these other people, change our history and whatever, when in fact we've been changing our history all along.
Yeah, I was going to say our history's already changed. We're just trying to make sure that it's actually told properly.
Well, we're trying to bring. I think what's trying to happen right now is society right now is trying to bring to light the actual truth of it, not the history you learned, but the actual true history.
Yes,
and you'll find out that the history that you learned, that's the history that you feel is being changed.
Yep,
is actually the changed history. It's the lie that you've been fed.
Yep,
and there's a reason for that.
Yep,
But anyway, I think we've reached the end of what I wanted to really touch on today, which is the fact that we've had the opportunity to do so many wonderful things with all of this, as bad and terrible and awful as the pandemic has been. We have had the opportunity to change our country and our world, our society in many different ways to make the best of this awful situation, and at every single turn, people are trying to rely too much on tradition, too much on the things that were before, that honestly, sometimes tradition needs to be done away with. Sometimes things just need to be let die. Not people, but things.
What was it that I saw? What was it that I read? I read something. I think it was a meme the other day that I saw. It said, tradition is peer pressure from dead people.
That's great. I love that.
Yeah.
And that's basically what it is. I mean, I can't count the times that I've heard, well, that's how we did it when I was younger, and you were wrong.
Right, exactly. It's like, well, that's the way it's always been. But why? Because you're used to it? Like,
it was
forget
wrong.
being used to it. What we're doing right now, nobody is freaking used to. So we might as well learn how to adapt and fix some things along the way.
It's not even that. Just, it doesn't matter if it's always been done a certain way. If it's not the right way to do it the right way.
Exactly.
Do it a better way.
Yes.
If there's a better way, do it a better way. If this is the best way, fine. But it's obviously not the best way.
Right.
Do it a better way.
Otherwise, we wouldn't have all these damn problems.
Sometimes tradition needs to be done away with. But, I mean, the only thing I can say is, it is what it is.
Well said, sir. Well said.
Take that with you all today. Apparently, that is the most important statement. Apparently, that solves all problems. It is what it is.
Oh, does it solve all problems? I didn't know that.
According to some people, I guess. Some people use it that way. Anyway, Mike, where will people be listening to us? I mean, they already are, but still, where can they find us?
Well, if you're listening to us, you're probably listening to us in one of many venues. The main one is our website, thexennialchronicles.com or zencron.com, spelled XENCHRON for shorthand. You also can check us out at Spotify and TuneIn and Google and Apple and all the fun podcast places. We are also on Facebook as well. Our podcast is actually converted to video on Facebook, so you can hear us there if you're not already. And speaking of video podcasts, we also are on YouTube as well. That is, you're just going to have to search the Xennial Chronicles on YouTube, and you'll be able to find us. If you're listening to us on YouTube, please make sure that you click like on this video if you dig on it. Also, hit subscribe for us. And if you're subscribed to us, hit the bell icon as well so you get notified in the next podcast we put out.
Click the bell.
Yes.
Also, feel free on YouTube or Facebook to comment on any of the podcasts that you hear. Ask us questions. We will be more than glad to respond. We always respond, unless you're a damn bot. We don't respond to bots.
We don't.
But anybody
we
else,
don't talk to bots.
we are more than glad. Yeah, anybody else, we're more than glad to respond to. I also want to make a note. Congrats on your ruling note video for Beatallica.
Oh, thank you.
It seems to be taking off pretty heavily, especially over the last 24 hours or so, right?
It's exploded, man. Beatallica actually threw out a shout out, and it has just caught fire. And
now we just need Metallica to notice it and say something.
Yeah, right.
And then your world is complete. But anyway, please, if you're listening to this and you haven't checked that out yet, please check that out.
Yeah.
Please check out, what is it? Let's see if I got it right. Chronosode Playground? Did I get it right?
Well, the Chronosode Playground is the Facebook page. Yes, you're right with the first name. Chronosode Games is the YouTube channel.
Chronosode Games. There's a YouTube channel. Check that out, too. That's Mike and his wife playing video games. I will admit I have not had an opportunity to watch any of the episodes yet. I'm a horrible friend. I've just been too busy.
It's all good, man. It's all good.
Hey, I'm trying to go to school, so
yeah,
that
dude.
too.
Hey, don't worry, the videos will still be there. So catch them when you can catch them.
It'll give me something to do when I'm actually doing the job and trying to zone out.
Right.
It's terrible that I committed that to a
no,
recording.
No, that's what they're for, man. You either sit and watch them in bursts, or you can marathon them and just leave them in the background. It's cool.
But anyway, thank you all for listening. Hope you understand my frustration with the school system as well. Hopefully within our lifetime, we will see tradition catch up to technology and have a better understanding of these things.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Y'all have a good one.
Thank you for tuning in, friends. The journey continues next week.